What if I told you we already know where the ancient weapon Pluton is and what it is? The secrets are truly hidden in Wano. Poseidon is a giant mermaid princess, so can we expect something creative and abstract that ties Wano to the destructive force of Pluton? So today I will tell you the answers to all of Pluton's biggest mysteries and explain why Pluton is truly the greatest warship ever created. You're going to want to stay tuned to the very end of this video because I have some huge potential reveals scattered throughout the entire video, and trust me, it will all come together by the very end. But before we get started, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe and hit that bell like Luffy and Skypiea. First, let's start out with what we actually know about Pluton. Pluton is an ancient weapon that holds a devastating power that the world government fears, but they also seek the power for themselves. The name Pluton comes from the Roman name of the Greek god Pluton of the underworld, think of like a Roman Hades. Pluton was first introduced in the Alabaster Ark as Crocodile was searching for it, with Nico Robin denying its existence and told Crocodile that she only read the history that is on the poneglyphs. But now it's been revealed that Pluton is actually in Wano, and Kozuki Sukiyaki has confirmed this new shocking revelation. And for me, it's just like, Robin, where was this during the last 800 chapters? Like, even in the last 100 chapters during the Wano arc, she waited until now to reveal something this massive. Anyways, Pluton was known to be the world's worst battleship, most likely created during a time when the ancient technology was available. During the Water 7 saga, Pluton's importance had a resurgence of relevance as we find out that there are blueprints that have been passed down for generations, in some ways a form of inherited will. And this is known as the counter or anti-Pluton. These legendary shipwrights would pass down the blueprints like we saw between Tom and Iceberg and then Iceberg to Franky, and it said that these blueprints exist as a precautionary measure in case Pluton fell into the wrong hands or if the weapon went out of control, and that is why Iceberg was so afraid of Nico Robin acquiring the knowledge in the poneglyphs of Pluton. According to Iceberg in chapter 344, he states that Nico Robin would be the one to reawaken Pluton due to her knowledge and the poneglyphs, and another interesting point is that Iceberg brings up that Pluton was actually created a long time ago in Water 7, and so if this was to happen, Iceberg and Franky would be forced to use the blueprints to create their own legendary warship. Just from Franky and Iceberg's reaction, Oda really shows how ridiculous Pluton would be to build, and really keep this in mind because it will be important and come up once again later in the video. And this is really what I love about Franky. He's just so insane that he's looking forward to building something like Pluton since he was a kid. Now, with all that being said, we should know that Franky destroyed the passed on anti-Pluton blueprints at Ina's lobby when he realized that Nico Robin and the Straw Hats were not evil. I will say that I'm very skeptical about this since we know that Franky loves warships and had an intrinsic fascination with building Pluton from a young age, and in many ways I believe that building one of these monstrous weapons is Franky's true dream, and some people have said that maybe Franky actually memorized the blueprints in his cyborg mind. But you let me know in the comments, will Franky create a super Pluton at some point in the series? Now let's move on to a very important mystery to understand the truth about Pluton. But before that, let me remind you to like the video as it really goes a long way in helping the channel grow. What if Pluton was a hibernating Klabautermann? During Water 7, we learn about Pluton, but we also find out about a fascinating phenomenon known as the Klabautermann. The Mary showed us that even ships can be crewmates as he had a soul residing in him, and he came in more clutch than Kobe saving the crew after they waged war against the government at Ina's lobby. The Klabautermann has always intrigued me as one of the most fascinating phenomenons in One Piece as it fits perfectly with the themes as well as being a pirate manga. You have the ongoing idea of inanimate objects coming to life, for example Big Mom's homies, the elephant sword that Vegapunk created, and even the swords who have personalities of their own, with Enma being a demonic sword of hell. And so the legends of the Klabautermann are perfectly incorporated as a ghost story or an old pirate legend. With the Mary's time coming to an end, the Klabautermann is a manifested form, a ghost form that brings a ship to life, and Usopp saw this for the ship that he cared about so deeply in Water 7 and Skypiea. Franky and Iceberg are also aware of this legend as they are both legendary shipwrights, and Iceberg even witnesses for himself the Mary coming to the Straw Hat's rescue. And so the reason why I'm bringing up the Klabautermann is because I think it's extremely likely that the greatest battleship would be a Klabautermann. And think of the original Pluton as a ship that is resting, a dormant beast waiting to be reawakened by Nico Robin and Joy Boy when the time is right. A hibernating Klabautermann super weapon, and knowing Oda foreshadowing the Klabautermann legend would be a great way to tie back to this pirate legend in the final saga of One Piece. And trust me, I even have proof that Pluton has a Klabautermann form, but I will reveal that way later in the video. Now let's move on to Franky, as he is tied to the Pluton storyline. What if I told you that Franky already revealed where Pluton was? Early in the Wano arc, we have a very small plot line where Franky is searching for the Onigashima blueprints, and this is when it hit me. What if Onigashima is actually Pluton? You see, the Onigashima blueprints being passed down is similar to how Tom, Iceberg, and Franky denied having the blueprints and continued to pass them down to someone else when they realized someone was onto them. Minatomo, the carpenter, even allows Franosuke or Franky to work for him, just like CP9 was in disguise working for Iceberg, who had the blueprints of Pluton. Something so valuable, and having Franky be the man who had the similar storyline of Water 7, who is someone who is tied to Pluton, would be perfect, because imagine if the Onigashima blueprints are actually the secrets to Pluton's blueprints. And with these blueprints, Franky might actually be able to understand that Onigashima was Pluton, or Pluton could have been hidden underneath Onigashima this entire time. And because Franky was so upfront about wanting the Onigashima blueprints, this is why Minatomo suspected him from the very start, especially when Franky is already a very suspicious man, being a giant cyborg who no one has ever heard of before the 2 weeks. Another thing that came to my mind is, what if Onigashima was kept furnished for generations by Minatomo's clan of carpenters? Just like Tom was a legendary shipwright, Minatomo was a legendary carpenter, and it's also possible that Kozuki Sukiyaki will take Robin and Franky to speak with Minatomo, and this is how it's revealed where Pluton truly is. The reason I actually thought about all of this was because of, according to what we learned in Water 7, despite how well made the Pluton warship is, you would need someone to maintain it all those years. And just as Tom's clan continues to pass down the blueprints, Minatomo's clan was most likely in charge of a similar responsibility. With Franky not exactly being a superstar this arc, it would actually be really cool to see the early Franky moments of Wano and Water 7 to be tied into the Pluton mystery. And so now moving on, I have to bring up Kaido and his deep ties to Pluton, but before we get to that, subscribe and hit that notification bell if you have not already. Many people in the past have spoke about the parallels between Thriller Bark and Wano. If you look at Thriller Bark, it's an island that's also a ship, so what if Onigashima could be the very same thing that was foreshadowed all the way back in the pre-time skip? We know that Kaido has an obsession with the Oni race, so let me think that maybe Kaido may have also found the Onigashima skull in Wano and then floated it over to the island out at sea to use it as decoration or a statement important to mark his base and territory of the Oni Island Onigashima. We know that Kaido has excavation teams and mining team, so if they found the skull, you know that Kaido would be extremely excited. And another reason why I think the Skull Dome could have actually been brought over from somewhere else is because of the display of only the top half of the skull. And if you notice, there is no lower jaw in Onigashima, and also where is the rest of the skeleton? Based on how Oars and Little Oars Jr. were built, you can see the massive skeletal structure of Onigashima and how its body would not directly fit underneath the skull. And so now we have to talk about the real reason why Kaido actually came to Wano, and I promise you it does have to do with Pluton. There's also the heavy theme about weapons that are tied directly to Kaido. Many people seem disappointed when we got Kaido's flashback, but with the new reveal of Pluton and Wano, his brief flashback is so much more interesting. Higurashi states that weapons are what speak the loudest in the world we live in, and I've got a deal that you'll want to hear about. With Kaido being tied to weapons, a weapon factory, smiles, Doflamingo, and being a weapon of war from a young age, it makes me wonder if this panel is implying the deal having something to do with the ancient weapon Pluton. And so Kaido saying I'm here because it's Wano could really connect with this panel because this is when he was first invited to the country. What if Rocks actually temporarily awakened an ancient weapon at God Valley? And this destructive force is why God Valley was wiped out from existence. I'll talk about this topic a lot more in a past video titled How Rocks almost destroyed the world, so go check it out after this video. The big reason why I stated this was because mentioning how rocks went too far into the world's taboos, which in Ohara's case was the ancient history, but more importantly being the ancient weapons being tied to it. And for someone who wanted to become king of the world, he could do that by destroying the world by using an ancient weapon like Uranus or Pluton. And if this is all the case, then it could explain why Kaido is so fascinated about the Pluton weapon being at Wano, as he has a direct connection being from the Rock's pirates, and it's fascinating because Higurashi says that he has a deal that he won't want to pass up on, and this all stems directly from the conversation right before with Higurashi referencing the God Valley incident and the Rock's pirates. And so with this brief conversation, it sparks Kaido's curiosity from these past events, and we also see Kaido say that war will bring down the celestial dragons and all the nobles and elites from around the world. And it makes you wonder if Kaido was actually inspired by the legend of Joy Boy. With Kaido being captured many times, possibly imprisoned, it wouldn't surprise me if he does know about the Nika tale from these events. And if you think about Shirahoshi, a very abstract idea of what an ancient weapon could be, I think it would be a perfect ending for Kaido's story if he was looking for Pluton this entire time and he did find it, but he just didn't realize that it was. And you might still say Onigashima is not a ship, but if this guy could really be considered to be a warship, then cut me some slack here, because we know Shirahoshi is not what everyone was thinking about when picturing the ancient weapon Poseidon. What if the world government, SSG, and Green Bull actually managed to take Pluton for themselves? It was stated from the very beginning that if Pluton fell into the wrong hands, it would be an absolute disaster scenario. This is a plot point that has been foreshadowed for so long. But more likely than the government taking it, I think that Blackbeard has a very high chance of taking Pluton, and because of his connections to Aokiji, he may have insider information on what the government is doing. And another reason why I think this is that we saw Blackbeard take Whitebeard's fruit at the very last moment, barging his way straight into Marine Forward, always ready to take advantage of any insane situation. And this could also be a reason why Nico Robin is such a high priority statement at the time, because Wano is literally becoming an arms race. Blackbeard, the Straw Hats, the world government, all heading for the ancient weapon. In chapter 956, Blackbeard vaguely says, "Pack your bags onto the ship. If the Marines are going to take it, I might as well claim the prize for myself." But now we know that the government is directly heading to Wano, with Admiral Greenbull already here. And he's insane enough to test it out and take out an entire island in one blow, showing the true destructive power of the Pluton weapon, kind of like a Death Star scene in Star Wars. And this could also set up Blackbeard as the next final main antagonist of the final saga, a true menace that needs to be stopped by the Straw Hats, the Red Hair Pirates, the government, and even the revolutionaries. But more importantly, I think this brings back Franky's true dream into fruition, because you might say Franky's dream was to simply create a legendary ship, but the main problem with that is that if that's the case, then it means Franky has already achieved his dream when he created the dream ship, the Thousand Sunny. And all the other Straw Hats' dreams are set up for the endgame, with Luffy becoming a pirate king, Zoro becoming the greatest swordsman. So with Blackbeard or even the Marines taking Pluton, it works perfectly to set up Franky, who has been creating battleships since day one. Franky was born to create the blueprints, so Franky must create what I'm calling the Super Pluton. We all remember the shocked look on his face when he first saw the blueprints, and like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, even at that young age, Franky was insane enough to want to bring it into existence. The excitement that he felt that day was inspiring and something that deep down he always wanted to do. 800 years of inherited will being passed down for generations. It would be a wasted opportunity to leave it at that because Luffy acquires Pluton, and that would be a truly beautiful moment, bringing back everything that Tom told him as he was taken to Eden's lobby. Remember how I said that it's really likely that we see the ancient weapon Pluton have a Klabautermann manifestation? Well, what if I told you that we've already seen Pluton's Klabautermann? For the longest time, people have asked, what is the point of Oda showing us the Grim Reaper? Is this an abandoned plotline? Was it a hallucination by Zoro from the drugs? Well, no, what if I told you that it was actually Pluton's Klabautermann, a ghostly manifestation that indicates Pluton is here at Onigashima, or maybe Onigashima itself is actually Pluton. Imagine that Pluton, the god of hell, the destructive underworld-themed weapon, overhears Zoro's fight with King. That moment when Zoro declares himself the king of hell, and Pluton's basically like, no the you're not, You're not about to take away my title. Pluton is quite literally the king of hell, so I just think it'd be hilarious if that's the reason why he revealed himself to Zoro just to press the out of him. And to make this all even better, we have the One Piece Onigashima anime opening where we see Onigashima look like it's coming to life. And this isn't just a mere coincidence because it was stated that the director of the anime opening specifically requested the detail to be animated in this way. Could this be a reference that Onigashima is truly a beast waiting to be awakened, a Klabautermann as the Grim Reaper, or the king of the underworld, Pluton? And if you've enjoyed this video up to this point and you want to support the channel, the best way would be by liking the video, sharing it with a friend, and leaving a comment on if you agree or disagree with this idea of Onigashima being Pluton. Crocodile described Pluton's power as destructive enough to eliminate an island with a single shot, especially with the advanced ancient technology and the massive fear of the government getting their hands on it. So hear me out. Destructive waves, storms, elemental power, this could be the true power of Onigashima and maybe all of Wano Kuni. Onigashima has its own powerful waves and storms and blizzards surrounding it. It has its own climate. So imagine if Onigashima could actually control the weather, the climate. This could be the true power of Onigashima and maybe all of Wano Kuni. So imagine if Onigashima could actually control the weather at a large scale. We already know it's possible due to Usopp's genius in creating Nami's weapons, and since those already exist, the ancient kingdom had advanced ancient technology, so why would they not be able to replicate this at a large scale? So Pluton is actually a giant conductor for ice beams, lightning strikes, drastic waves, and insane winds. It would be a devastating ability as a ship since it could throw off any other ships in its path. When you think about how big Onigashima really is in scale with Luffy's ship, it could really be used as a powerful weapon if these weather powers are used correctly. A big mystery is the storms, and Nami points out that Wano is like its own sea, and it would be interesting if these waves and weather and climate changes are all coming from Pluton's power. For both sides of the Marines and the pirates, it's a weapon that is useful since they are all tied to the sea. Within the One Piece world where there is so much ocean and islands in between the Grand Line, I would love to see something like this for Pluton. But now for the Super Franky, there are a few possibilities. What if Franky could turn all of Wano into a Super Pluton, the natural force of Wano's storms paired with the ancient technology of the Super Cannons, a powerful giant battleship that becomes ready for war once Momonosuke destroys Wano's borders. And I also had the idea that Iceberg was turning Water 7 into its own Pluton boat after all. Pluton was originally created at Water 7 and Iceberg knows what Pluton is. The problem with this really becomes the citizens at risk being an issue, but then he realized that both Water 7 and Wano will both be enemies of the world government at the very end of the series, with the government wanting to annex Wano, and I think Iceberg will turn on the government in the end because he's already been through so much with CP9. In a way, turning these into giant battleships might be actually the best way to protect their own people in the future. And so if Iceberg stops complying with the world government, it's possible that he may have to team up with Tom's workers, the Franky family, and maybe even Franky to create their own Pluton in Water 7. Plus, Iceberg already told us that he was going to make Water 7 a ship, and this hasn't been paid off in a great way yet, so we're already halfway there. It would be even more interesting if Iceberg was actually inspired to create Water 7 into a ship from the Pluton blueprints. Next, what if Franky was to create a fleet of Super Plutons? Okay, yeah, fleet is a bit much, but even if he created multiple, let's say 4 or 5 total, it would be going above and beyond, but it's also a possibility, because this is exactly what was so terrifying of the blueprints existing in the first place, the possibility to create multiple devastating weapons if necessary. We saw Franky and his battle Franky's way back in the day, so you can never truly rule this out. And finally, if Franky could somehow make a super battle Franky Pluton with a Klabautermann soul, this could be an insane power at the end of the series, because imagine an island that is alive, and if you added weapons and giant cannons and the natural force of something that massive, now you have Pluton on its own free will raging battle and raging war against the machine. If you add the weather weapons like Usopp and mass produce these with Franky's weapons, you've now created the dream ship that he's been dreaming of since a very young child. And since Pluton might be way too massive to scale, Franky might have to resort to making 4 or 5 smaller ones ones if I am right about Onigashima being Pluton. So if you did enjoy this video, we need your help to get it out to more One Piece fans. So make sure you hit that like button and hit the notification bell for future videos like this. And doing this is proven to skyrocket our channel into the YouTube algorithm, and if you want to continue to solve the One Piece world's biggest mysteries, click on one of these two videos.